Hi everyone, this is Dr. Chhoda with Ignition Time, and in this video I'm going to give you a frame-by-frame analysis of the President's historic press conference where he made some pretty unprecedented decisions and announcements that are going to shake up the political landscape, the legal landscape, the unemployment benefits, the eviction landscape, the student loan landscape across the country. I'm going to give you a quick analysis and I'm going to let you listen to the President immediately after my analysis so you can see what the President said, and then you'll have a quick understanding of the entire situation. To start with, the President talked about the state of the current negotiations. If you've been following my channel, you know that the White House negotiators, Stephen Mnuchin and Mark Meadows on one side, and the two top Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, and the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, on the other side, have met for almost 2 weeks. They had several meetings, including a meeting as recent as yesterday where they simply had no consensus. So the President simply decided to take matters into his own hands and he took unilateral action. In fact, he said, "We have tried repeatedly." He said the Democrats have refused to negotiate. This is what he said. The Democrats, I'm sure, would disagree with that. And he said they want bailout money for poorly run Democratic states for many years, and we are not willing to do that. He said, hopefully we can do something with them at a later date. So he did leave the door open. But then the measures that he took, the moves that he made at this press conference pretty much are going to shut the door, in my opinion, with any future negotiations with the Democrats, because this creates a showdown, if you will, a political showdown. He said, we are going to sign some bills to pretty much take care of the entire situation. And he said 1/3 of their bill, 1/3 of their proposals had nothing to do with the pandemic. Let's watch what the President had to say about this in his own words.
In the current negotiations, we have repeatedly stated our willingness to immediately sign legislation providing expanded unemployment benefits, protecting Americans from eviction, and providing additional relief payments to families. Democrats have refused these offers. They want to negotiate. What they really want is bailout money for states that are run by Democrat governors and mayors and that have been run very badly for many, many years and many decades, in fact. You know the states. Everybody knows who we're talking about and what we're talking about. I don't think we have to go over it. But what the Democrats primarily want is bailout money. It has nothing to do with the China virus. It has nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about over the last period of time. They want to bail out states that have been badly managed by Democrats, badly run by Democrats for many years, and in fact, in all cases, many decades. And we're not willing to do that. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have chosen to hold this vital assistance hostage on behalf of very extreme partisan demands and the radical left Democrats, and we just can't do that. So hopefully we can do something with them at a later date, but we're going to be signing some bills in a little while that are going to be very important and will take care of pretty much this entire situation as we know it and as you have been covering it, and in some cases actually covering it accurately. Many of the far-left policies they're pushing have nothing to do, again, with what we have been working on so hard, namely the corona. You can call it so many different names. What a horrible thing China released upon the world. 1/3 of their bill, the HEROES Act, is spending completely unrelated money to the virus.
Now, in this second segment, the President set up what I call as the political showdown, and I believe he set the stage for what's going to be the next big topic of conversation leading up to the presidential elections. He talked about voter fraud and the problem with mail-in ballots, and he specifically said that the other side could be trying to steal the election. So he talked about Joe Biden and voter ID. He talked about, like I said, what I think is going to be the next big topic of conversation in the country. It's going to be an extremely controversial and extremely divisive topic in the country, and it is setting up, like I mentioned, what I call as a political showdown. And just as President Trump back in 2016 made immigration a major issue, he made the wall a major issue, he is now making voter ID and mail-in ballots the issue leading up to the 2020 presidential elections. Let's watch what the President said.
Here are just a few of the policies in their extreme left bill. And again, this is a bill supported by Biden. And Biden is totally controlled now by the Bernie Sanders left wing of the party. And in fact, he's gone further left than Bernie Sanders ever dreamt of going. So obviously, other than Bernie have brought him left. If you look at the manifesto that they've agreed to, It's far further left than I've ever heard anything about Bernie Sanders. The massive taxpayer bailout of badly run blue states we talked about. That's one of the things they're looking to do. Measures designed to increase voter fraud, banning voter ID. They want to ban voter ID. We should have voter ID in every state. Every state should have voter ID. You have ID on everything you do practically. Everybody has voter ID. Everybody has ID except for voters. When you vote, you don't want ID. They don't want it. We have some states with it. It works out great. And if you want to stop fraud in elections, have voter ID. They want measures designed to increase voter fraud, which is banning voter ID in all states and banning requirements for signature verification in federal elections. Now, why would they want, in this bill, which really has nothing to do with what we're talking about, stimulus, something banning voter ID in every single state? They want to ban it, including states where we already have it, because we have some states where we have it. Indiana and others that do very well. Why would they want to ban voter ID in all states? And why would they want to ban requirements for signature verification in federal election? Who would want a bill banning signature verification? What's that all about? You know what it's about? Fraud. That's what they want, fraud. They want to try and steal this election because, frankly, it's the only way they can win the election. The bill also requires all states to do universal mail-in balloting, which nobody's prepared for, regardless of whether or not they have the infrastructure. They want to steal an election. That's all this is all about. They want to steal the election.
Now, this is the segment where the political division, the bipartisanship, the division is essentially magnified with things that the president says. The president said, and I quote, the Democratic bill includes checks for illegal aliens. Democrats want open borders. Democrats want mass release of illegal aliens from detention. They want mass release of inmates, including serious felons. He said, what does this have to do with the stimulus and the economy? What does this have to do with the pandemic? So again, he was setting up what is essentially a political showdown, like I mentioned in this video. I want you to watch and listen to yourself. Now, the Democrats are going to disagree with the characterization of the president. But what's important here is that a lot of the partisanship, a lot of the division that already exists in our country leading up to the election is now going to get magnified. Let's watch what the president said.
It's ridiculous. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. The Democrat bill includes stimulus checks for illegal aliens. So if you were able to get into our country illegally, and our border is, as you know, doing very well right now. We have a very strong border, and the wall is up to 276 miles. And we'll be completed with it around the end of the year. We're going to do some extra mileage in certain areas that people didn't realize were so bad. So we'll be completed with it right after. We're going to do the additional mileage. We'll do it probably a little bit after the year. I think from what I've heard, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, wants to rip the wall down. He wants people to pour into our country. They want to have open borders. We don't want to have open borders. So the Democrat bill includes stimulus checks for illegal aliens. They require the mass release of illegal aliens from detention. They also compel the mass release of inmates, including serious felons. How do you like that one? And this is in the bill that we're talking about. What does this have to do with stimulus, the economy? What does this have to do with the coronavirus? Know the name? What does this have to do with this?
The president continued with his comments about the Democrats, and he said that the Democrats are blocking support for K-12 schools to help them safely reopen. He said the Democrats are blocking support for the Paycheck Protection Program, the second version of the Paycheck Protection Program, if you will. Additional money for hospitals, testing, as well as vaccines. He said the Democrats are actively blocking things that we want that are good for the people. Direct payments of $3,400 for a family of four, because if a family gets $1,200 for each spouse, and then $500 per dependent, that's $3,400 for a family of four. He said Democrats are blocking funding for childcare and mental health care. Now, I can promise you that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are going to have a major problem with this. They're going to say that's not true. They're going to call it a mischaracterization, which again sets the stage for more partisanship, more of a bitter battle, if you will, because we find ourselves in a situation where each side is taking more and more entrenched positions What we really need is more consensus, more agreement. And I'm going to cover what's going to happen next, but it's anybody's guess what's going to happen next in terms of the reaction from the Democrats and in terms of whether all of these moves are going to be seeing any kind of legal battles. Let's watch what the president had to say.
In addition to demanding these extreme partisan provisions, Democrats are actively blocking the following measures: support for K-12 schools to help them safely open, additional funding for the Paycheck Protection Program to help millions of workers on the payroll. These are a great program, very successful, kept a lot of businesses open. That's why we're doing so well in reopening our country. Additional money for hospitals, testing, and vaccines, direct payments of $3,400 for a family of 4. Now remember, this is what the extreme partisans, this is what we're talking about. Democrats are actively blocking the things that we want, and what we want is good for people. These are things that they're blocking. Support for K-12 schools so they can open. Think of that. Also, direct payments of the $3,400 for a family of 4 plus. Then funding for child care and mental health care. And you need that, especially when you have so much of a lockdown. You need that. Mental health care. Funding for broadband, airports, and agriculture. Rental assistance, and support for community banks and credit unions to help them provide $100 billion in loans to the hardest hit communities, including rural communities and farmers. They don't want anybody to get that.
Now, this is the part of the press conference where things took a pretty dramatic turn pretty quickly, as is quite common in these kinds of press conferences. The president said, "We've had it. I'm taking executive action." So he said, "We've had it. I'm taking executive action." He said, "We are providing a payroll tax holiday to Americans earning less than $100,000. Employers will defer payment of employee portion." Initially, he said it would be starting September 1st, and he said August 1st through the end of the year. And he said this would mean bigger paychecks for working families. In other words, you would go home with a bigger paycheck if you made less than $100,000 a year. Now, he also said, "If I'm victorious on November 3rd, I will forgive these payroll taxes. If I win, I may extend it beyond the end of the year and terminate the tax." Now, this is very interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, why wait until you win to forgive the payroll tax? So that's the first question that actually occurred to me. Number two, he said, if I win, I may extend it beyond the end of the year and terminate the tax. If you terminate the payroll tax, how are we going to get funding for Medicare and Social Security? Because the payroll tax pays for Medicare and Social Security. Medicare is already underfunded, and Social Security as a program is expected to run out of money at some point in time unless changes are made to introduce more money into Social Security. So how do you essentially take the bottom out of Social Security, and how do you make that a condition of you getting re-elected? I just thought that was, I've never seen any president make that kind of a statement. So that was interesting. But again, the president said that there would be bigger checks for working families. If I am victorious on November 3rd, I will forgive those payroll taxes. So in other words, he's saying that if you elect me, I will forgive the payroll taxes. And that is essentially like telling someone, hey, I'm giving you money, and if you elect me, the money will be forgiven. So interpret that however you want. And he said, if I win, I may extend it beyond the end of the year and terminate the tax. So again, which raises the question, what's going to happen to the funding for Medicare and Social Security? Let's watch what the president had to say.
Democrats are obstructing all of it. Therefore, I'm taking executive action. We've had it. And we're going to save American jobs and provide relief to the American workers. And I'll be signing these bills in a very short period of time. First one is I'm providing a payroll tax holiday to Americans earning less than $100,000 per year. In a few moments, I will sign a directive instructing the Treasury Department to allow employers to defer payment of the employee portion of certain payroll taxes from September 1st. And we're actually going to be making that. We just got the word. We're just getting some word from a lot of people. We didn't think we'd have to do this because we thought the Democrats would be reasonable, but they've been not only unreasonable, they've been ridiculous. So we're going to make that August 1st, most likely. It'll be August 1st. We'll let you know the exact date, but we're looking like August 1st. So it'll be August 1st through the end of 2020. This will mean bigger paychecks for working families as we race to produce a vaccine and eradicate the China virus once and for all. And we're doing very good with the numbers. You see it's going down in Arizona very, very substantially and rapidly, going down in California, going down in Texas, going down in Florida. Other areas are propping up a little bit, but we're watching them very closely. We understand the disease, and we're watching them very closely, especially our senior citizens and our senior citizens' residences. If I'm victorious on November 3rd, I plan to forgive these taxes and make permanent cuts to the payroll tax. I'm going to make them all permanent.
Now, as you can see, I've been analyzing this press conference very, very closely. In this part of the press conference, President Trump said, I'm signing an executive order directing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS and CDC, to make sure renters and homeowners can stay in their homes. He said, I'm protecting people from eviction. Now, this sounds great politically, right? I am protecting people from eviction. He said that he told the Democrats, let's do that separately, and they didn't want to protect people from eviction. So again, the positioning from the president is that I told them that we want to do it separately, but they said no, and therefore I want to protect people from eviction. And they, meaning the Democrats, meaning House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, did not want to protect people from eviction. This is what the president is presenting at the press conference. He said it's not their fault that this, and he was talking about individuals who were facing eviction. It's not their fault that this pandemic came into our country. He did say it came in from China. He said, he reiterated, I am protecting people from eviction. He said, we are helping other countries with thousands and thousands of ventilators. He talked about the leadership that the United States is demonstrating by helping other countries, by sending ventilators to other countries. And he said, this is the important part, the Department of Housing and Urban Development will provide financial assistance to struggling renters, homeowners, and work with landlords and lenders, meaning the banks that lend the money. He said, we'll work with them to keep Americans safely in their homes, so we don't want people getting evicted. And he said, the act that I'm signing will, and I quote, will solve that problem largely, hopefully completely. Now, keep in mind that this does not answer the question, how many renters are covered, who's covered, how long will the extension of eviction moratoriums last, and I'm assuming there is an extension of the eviction moratorium here. We'll see exactly what the president signed, because we'll get that information shortly. Is there any dollar amount for renters in terms of assistance to cover back rent? And who is actually covered? Are individuals with a certain income level covered? Are individuals covered only if their landlord has a federal loan? How does this all exactly work? That is still not clear, but let's watch what the president had to say about this. And after this, we'll talk about what the president said about unemployment benefits extension. But first, let's watch what the president said about the eviction for renters.
Second, I'm signing an executive order directing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS, and CDC to make sure renters and homeowners can stay in their homes. So I'm protecting people from eviction. Yet you've been hearing a lot about eviction, and the Democrats don't want to do anything having to do with protecting people from eviction. I said, let's do that separately. That could be a totally separate thing from passing along money so people can live. And they didn't even want to protect people from eviction, so they would get evicted. It's not their fault that this virus came into our country. It's China's fault, and came into the world. By the way, a lot of the people, a lot of the states that were doing the best are having some problems. A lot of the states that we weren't thinking were doing the best are doing very well. You look at some of the countries involved, some of the countries that were really standing out as examples are now exploding, but they'll get it down. They understand it. We're dealing with them. We're dealing with a lot of countries. We're providing thousands and thousands of ventilators all over the world right now. We make a lot of ventilators. We've started off with very little, and we're making a lot. And we have thousands in our stockpile, but we're making thousands a month. And we're providing many of them, thousands and thousands, to other countries that would never be able to get them. The Department of Housing and Urban Development will also provide financial assistance to struggling renters and homeowners and work with landlords and lenders to keep Americans safely in their homes. So we don't want people being evicted. and the act that I'm signing will solve that problem largely, hopefully completely.
Now, in this segment, which is probably the key segment for a lot of individuals on my channel, for a lot of my viewers, subscribers, and for over 30 million Americans, unemployment benefit extension. Here's what the president said. The president said with the third action, he's providing additional support for Americans who are unemployed due to the China pandemic. He calls it the China pandemic. He said congressional Democrats have stonewalled our efforts to extend this relief. He said they opposed return to work bonuses. So essentially, the president is setting up all the blame on the Democrats and saying they are the ones who created the problem. I'm the one who's solving the problem. He said, for this reason, I'm taking action to provide additional relief, $400 a week in expanded benefits. Now, keep in mind, these are enhanced unemployment benefits on top of the state unemployment benefits. Okay. So he said expanded benefits. States will be asked to cover 25% of the cost using existing funding. So he's talking about tens of billions of dollars that he says the states already have because of the pandemic relief fund. And he said states can offer extended benefits and the federal government will cover 75% of the cost. So that means citizens can expect the state unemployment benefits. On top of that $400 a week, 75% of that $400 will come from the federal government. The remaining 25%, which is $100 a week, will come from the states. And he said they want, and he talked about the Democrats, he said they want all of the additional things that have nothing to do with the pandemic, basically alluding that that's why talks didn't come together about unemployment benefit extensions. He did say something that was really key. He said, we are doing this without the Democrats. He said we are doing this without the Democrats. Now, just to be clear, a lot of experts, economists, a lot of legal scholars, and you'll see this all over the news channels. A lot of economists and a lot of legal experts believe that by definition, the administration of unemployment insurance must conform with federal law, and there is no federal law currently on the books allowing for an additional sum. Now, even though the president is the chief executive, if he says something but the law doesn't exist for that something, right? How is that supposed to be interpreted? So that is going to be the key question that is going to be extensively debated. It's going to be something that the Democrats are going to challenge, but it does put them in a very difficult situation in the court of public opinion, because if they oppose the $400 a week, now suddenly they look bad. Remember one thing, there is always a political reason to do something. There is the legal feasibility of doing that something, and in this case we've entered the gray area. And then on the other hand, there's the court of public opinion. Now, President Trump, I believe, understands the court of public opinion, and he has taken what I consider to be a political gamble, that if the Democrats oppose that, it essentially puts them in a checkmate situation, and if they don't oppose that, he comes back and becomes a savior. In life and in business, you know, it's usually a case of heads you win, tails you lose. But in this case, it seems to be a case of heads I win, tails I don't lose. Let's watch what the president said about unemployment benefits extension.
The third action I'm taking today will also provide additional support for Americans who are unemployed due to the China virus. Under the CARES Act, I proudly signed expanded unemployment benefits into law. Congressional Democrats have stonewalled our efforts to extend this relief. They even opposed measures that would give bonuses to workers returning to the job. They were totally opposed to that. For this reason, I'm taking action to provide an additional or an extra $400 per week in expanded benefits. $400, okay? So that's generous, but we want to take care of our people. Again, it wasn't their fault, it was China's fault. States will be asked to cover 25% of the cost using existing funding, such as the tens of billions of dollars available to them through the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Under this plan, states will be able to offer greater benefits if they so choose, and the federal government will cover 75% of the cost. So we're all set up. It's $400 per week. And we're doing that without the Democrats. We should have been able to do it very easily with them, but they want all of these additional things that have nothing to do with helping people.
In the next segment of this press conference, President Trump talks about student loan payments, bringing them down to zero, providing relief to students. But he says something towards the end of this segment that I believe is again going to set up a lot of division, a lot of partisanship. I can virtually guarantee you that the conservative news stations will be covering this, and the more liberal news stations will not be covering this. And there's going to be a lot of controversy about this in certain news outlets. And I do believe that this will be significantly blown out of proportion, whether or not it has a chance of becoming reality. I want us to take a measured approach towards the information that I'm about to give you now and towards what the president says, because some of the things that the president has said are going to be a political challenge and are going to be fiscally quite challenging and potentially dangerous for the economy of the United States. I say potentially because different economists will have different points of view. So first, let's talk about what the president said about student loan payments. The president said, I'm signing a directive providing relief to student loan borrowers, suspending student loan payments and lowering interest rates to zero, which has already been done. He said, I'm extending the student relief through the end of the year, and he alluded that he would most likely extend it. His exact words, he would extend it most likely right after December 1st. Again, this creates a situation where the president is saying, elect me and I will extend it further. I mean, if the president wanted to, he could simply extend it beyond that. Why does it have to be, I will extend it further after December 1st? This is a question that we need to ask ourselves, and this is a question that a lot of people are also going to ask. So he said there'll be more relief for student loan payments, not their fault that the colleges have closed down. And then he said something, and this is the important part that I alluded to earlier. He said, I'm looking at additional tax cuts like income tax cuts and capital gains tax cuts. Income tax cuts for lower income and middle income individuals. Now, the lower income and the middle income individuals in our society are the individuals who've been most, impacted by what's going on with what has happened with the pandemic. Individuals in travel, hospitality, leisure, hotels, entertainment. All of these industries have been hit the hardest, and I've done many videos talking about this on my channel. But what, from a political standpoint, these individuals, and a lot of the individuals are African American, a lot of the individuals are Hispanic, and individuals of all races and ethnicities. But these individuals are important voters for the November election. So what he said is, and he spoke extensively about this, he said, you do have tax inequality, and I'm saying that as a Republican. He said that the stock market is doing well, your 401ks are doing well, and he said that the biggest tailwind, initially he called it a tailwind, and then he called it a headwind because he meant to say headwind. He said the biggest headwind we have with respect to the stock market is the possibility that these, I quote, radical left Democrats will win, and if they win, there will be a crash because they are going to raise taxes. Your 401ks and your stocks will go down like a rock. They want to raise taxes, and he also said they want to do a childish Green New Deal. Now, this is quite significant because the president is saying, I want to lower taxes. So if you elect me, I will lower taxes. I'll also sort of dangle that carrot in front of you that I will extend the student loan forgiveness beyond December 1st. I will forgive the payroll taxes. I will possibly even eliminate payroll taxes. I mean, when I heard that, I was like, whoa. So these are the sort of things that are being dangled out in front of us, and that's what the president said. I've never heard anything like this. Let's listen to what the president had to say.
Fourth, I'm signing a directive providing relief to student loan borrowers. Earlier this year, we slashed student loan interest rates to zero. I don't know if people know that because the press doesn't ever report it, but maybe they're watching now. The press doesn't report a lot of good things that are good for the people and good for the country. Earlier this year, we slashed student loans, interest rates to 0% and suspended student loan payments, and Congress extended that policy through September 30th. Today, I'm extending this policy through the end of the year, and we'll extend it further than that, most likely right after December 1st. So we look like we're going to be extending that. They're paying zero interest. And again, not their fault that their colleges are closed down, and not their fault that they're unable to get what they bargained for. Through these four actions, my administration will provide immediate and vital relief to Americans struggling in this difficult time. And the beautiful thing about this difficult time is we're now coming back and setting records. We'll also ensure that our economic comeback continues full speed ahead, and with the $400 and all of the other measures that we're talking about, and we'll be signing in a little while, that will happen. We're further looking at additional tax cuts, including income tax relief, income tax cuts, and capital gains tax cuts. So we're going to be looking at that capital gains for the purpose of creating jobs, and income tax is self-explanatory, and it'll be income tax for middle income and lower income people, but middle income people, because they pay a lot of income tax, and you do have tax inequality. I'm saying that as a Republican, and you do have tax inequality. So we're going to be looking at income tax, and we're going to be looking at capital gains tax cuts on both, and maybe substantial. And we'll be reporting back fairly shortly on that. That's big news. That's big news, but very important. We want to have our jobs flourish. We want to have our companies do great. We want to have the 401ks, which are now at a level, if you look at the stock market, it's great. If you have stocks in NASDAQ, you're higher than you ever were, including, even this is still during the pandemic, the stock market, because they see such incredible things happening, smart people. The stock market is at almost an all-time high. We're just short of it, and NASDAQ is higher than it ever was. It's broken the record 14 times in the last couple of months. So 401ks are doing fantastically. I hope you kept your stocks. I hope you didn't sell. I hope you had confidence in your president and confidence that your president was going to be reelected. And I will tell you this, that the biggest tailwind, the biggest problem that we have with respect to the stock market, which is not much of a problem because it's doing so well, but it would be actually much higher, is the possibility that these radical left Democrats could win. And if they win, we're going to have a crash. We're going to have a terrible problem because they're going to raise taxes, $3 trillion worth of taxes. And that's going to affect everybody from middle income to upper income to jobs to companies. Your 401ks will go down like a rock. Your stocks will go down like a rock. You know, and don't forget, these big companies, you have stocks in these companies. You know, you own stocks. And they have millions and millions of shareholders. And whether it's pension funds or anybody else, you all have stocks. So they're big companies, but a lot of people own that stock, and we want to keep it going. But we do have, I guess you could say, not a tailwind, it's a headwind, I guess would be a better description. But it is, it's a headwind. And when you think of it, that's, in my opinion, it would be much higher. But you look at what they want to do. They want to raise everybody's taxes, everybody. And they want to do the Green New Deal, which will decimate our country and decimate. It's ridiculous, too. It's childish. I actually say the Green New Deal is childish. It's for children. It's not for adults. Anybody that believes in that is, I don't know, maybe it's politics. I don't even think it's good politics. They seem to think so. We'll see how they do.
Now, in this part of the video, the president signs all 4 executive orders. And the reason I'm showing you this part of the video is because the president said something that was very telling, very significant. And then just to break up the pace a little bit towards the end, he made a joke about someone taking hundreds of pictures. But I thought that it was very interesting as he was signing the executive orders, and see if you catch this. He said, when he was signing the executive order about the payroll tax, he said, which we will end up terminating eventually. It seems like this is going to be a big aspect of the president's re-election efforts, the fact that he will essentially do away with the payroll tax so that you go home with a higher paycheck. But I want all of us to think about this. If the payroll tax goes away, how is Medicare and Social Security going to get funded? We don't have the answer to that question yet, but let's watch the president signing the 4 executive orders and his comment about doing away with the payroll tax potentially in the future. Let's watch.
Okay, so this is for the authorization of other needs assistance program, major disasters declaration related to the coronavirus disease. Okay, got it? Yeah. Okay. So this is authority invested in me. This is the payment relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is fighting the spread of the COVID-19 by providing assistance to renters and homeowners. We're doing assistance. And this is deferral payroll tax obligations. So this is your payroll tax obligations, which we're going to end up terminating eventually, right? How many pictures can you take over there? I mean, you're taking hundreds of pictures. What are you doing? Okay.
Now, this segment is the end of the press conference when President Trump stopped to take questions from reporters, and he was specifically asked at the start, from the very first question he faced was, what's going to happen if the states don't cooperate or don't have the money or have some issue handing out the $100 out of the $400 per week because states are underfunded, states are running short of money. He said, and I quote, if they don't, that's going to be their problem. They have the money, it's sitting there. And he said this is more than what we were prepared to offer initially. Remember that the initial proposal from the Republicans was $200 a week. So, and then they did go up to a $400 a week proposal. And he said if it's going to be any higher, it's going to be a disincentive for people to get back to work. This, by the way, has been the Republican position all along. He was specifically asked about the deferral of the payroll tax. He said that this will help our country to get back to work. And when he was asked, hey, why are you doing this? Because the Democrats didn't want it, the Republicans never really supported it. He said, I quote, both sides wanted it, people want it, and people need it. And he also said that he would continue to negotiate with the Democrats, the administration would continue to negotiate. But at this point, after all of these executive actions, I don't see what kind of negotiation can really happen, because I'm pretty sure that the Democrats are going to be unhappy, and they're going to pretty much criticize all of these executive actions and question what they would consider to be presidential oversight. That's what we can expect. They're not just the Democrats are not going to sit back and simply say, well done to the president. That's just the way our system is. That's just the way our partisan system, our political division is. He said, as far as the states are concerned, we have significant money that is unspent, and it will be used for different purposes. He said and when he was asked how soon will this unemployment benefits extension money get to people, he said he didn't provide a timeline. Let's be clear, he did not provide a timeline. He did not, by the way, he didn't even talk about retroactive benefits as far as I know. So in case you're wondering, will there be retroactive benefits? We'll wait for the actual bill that the president signed, the actual executive order. The actual executive order that the president signed, we'll wait for that to come out, and we'll see if that includes retroactive benefits going back from the end of July. But he said the money will be rapidly distributed. He said they're going to see it very soon. This is going to, and he was asked, are there going to be some legal challenges to this? He said this is going to go rapidly through the courts. If he gets sued, it's going to be somebody that doesn't want people to get money. Congress has obstructed people from getting desperately needed money. I've mentioned this earlier in the video. There is the political partisanship. There is the legal framework within which the federal law, within which everybody operates, including the president. Now, the president does have special privileges that others don't have, but again, there is a framework. That is why we have our constitutional system. In the founding fathers, in their infinite wisdom, set up the House, set up the Senate, and set up the president. But he said that, basically he's done this, and if we get sued, we get sued. Now, keep in mind that in the court of public opinion, the president is going to come across as a hero, whichever way you look at it. And again, in life, like I've mentioned before, there is, heads you lose, heads you win, tails you lose. In this case, it is heads you win, tails you don't lose as far as the president and the administration are concerned. That's basically what's going to happen right now as this whole situation unravels, as YouTube goes crazy, as the media goes crazy. And again, you'll hear more about this in some media outlets, and you won't hear about it at all with other media outlets because of the division that exists within our country. And my goal is to report it to you as the news as it exists. Now, President Trump is known for walking away from interviews when he doesn't like being asked questions that he doesn't want to answer, or when he's badgered with the same question over and over again. So you probably know this if you follow press conferences, but in case you don't, that's how President Trump is. If he doesn't like something, he's just going to say, thank you very much, and he's going to walk away. And the reason I tell you that is because towards the end of this segment, the president was asked the same question over and over and over again, and he just walked away. Let's watch.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Can we start with the $400, sir? So just wanted to get your reaction. So you're saying the states will have to cover some of this cost, sir. Which governors have told you that they would sign on?
Well, if they don't, they don't. That's up to them. But if they don't, they don't. That's going to be their problem. I don't think their people will be too happy. They have the money, so I don't think their people will be too happy. But if they don't, they don't. But again, the states have the money. It's sitting there. All right, Kelly.
Sir, why did you decide on $400 when previously families were receiving $600?
Yeah.
That will be a hardship for many. What do you say to them?
Well, no, it's not a hardship. This is the money that they need. This is the money they want, and this gives them a great incentive to go back to work. So this was much more than was originally agreed. The 600 was a number that was there. And as you know, there was difficulty with the 600 number because it really was a disincentive. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mr. President. Sir, the payroll tax cut was opposed by both parties on Capitol Hill. Can you give your rationale as to why you think that's so important, particularly since it doesn't help Americans who currently don't have jobs?
It helps people greatly. It helps our country get back. And anybody that would say anything different, I think, is very foolish. Everybody wanted it. By the way, the Democrats want it. The Republicans want it. They just couldn't get it. They just couldn't come to an agreement. But everybody wants it. And the very important thing is the people want it, and the people need it, actually. Yeah.
Mr. President, you said that this will pretty much take care of the entire situation, but as you said, there's not money for reopening schools, other important items. Is your administration willing to go back to Democrats to try to actually negotiate?
Well, the answer is yes, but we have money to do other things. We have a lot of money that was unspent, and we'll be able to do things with the money that was unspent. We have significant money that was unspent, and we will be able to use that for different purposes. Go ahead.
Mr. President, when will this relief get in the hands of Americans that need it? What date?
We think it's going to be very rapid. We want it to be very rapid. It's going to be distributed in a way that, whichever the fastest way, there are various methods, and it will be rapidly distributed.
You're also expecting legal challenges with this, right?
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that.
Yesterday, sir, you said that you were expecting legal.
What I said is people can do whatever they want. I guess maybe they'll bring legal actions, maybe they won't, but they won't win. They won't win.
And legal action is brought against you on this. Why not just work with Congress on this deal?
Well, I'm not saying they're not going to come back and negotiate. They might very well come back and negotiate.
You're signing an executive order today, and Americans want to know when they're going to see this relief.
Very soon. They're going to see it very soon. Look, there it is, right there. Excuse me. There it is, right there. Go ahead.
Mr. President, though, this is expected to be tied up in the court, so this relief is either going to be delayed or blocked
I don't think
indefinitely.
so. I think this is going to go very rapidly through the courts. This will go very. If we get sued, maybe we won't get sued. If we get sued, it's somebody that doesn't want people to get money, okay? And that's not going to be a very popular thing.
Go around Congress. Are you trying to set a new precedent that the president can go around Congress and decide how
You ever
money
hear
is
the
collected
word
and spent?
obstruction? They've obstructed. Congress has obstructed. The Democrats have obstructed people from getting desperately needed money. Go ahead, please, right here.
President,
No,
why do you keep
you're
saying
finished.
that
Go
you
ahead,
passed
please.
veterans' choice?
Please.
You said that you passed veterans' choice. It was passed in 2014.
Okay, excuse me. Go ahead,
But
please.
it's a false statement, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
So there you have it, everybody. That was my analysis of the historic press conference from President Trump, where the president signed 4 executive orders on various subjects that are going to change the topic of conversation. Politically, this is going to set up more division. Legally, this is going to create more challenges. Financially, it's going to affect the future of the country. And in the court of public opinion, when it comes to popularity, this is going to set up divisions unlike anything we've ever seen. I believe this video, this analysis is the best in the world. Forget the best on YouTube. I believe it's better than anything you'll find on conservative outlets. It's better than anything you'll find on liberal outlets. And if you learned something new from this video, if there's anything new that you learned, please do me a favor, click the like button below, because a ton of effort went into this video, as you can see, and I tried to bring it to you as quickly as I could so that you could get the news and you would know everything that's going on, and you can make your decisions accordingly about what you need to do next, both from a short-term financial standpoint and from what you are planning on doing in the future at the end of the year. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. My channel is Ignition Time. This is the longest video I've ever done, because this was a historic moment. This was a ton of effort. I do appreciate you watching. I do appreciate you sticking with me till the end. And if you have stuck with me till the end, I want you to know that my name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. I live the American dream. I believe I'm a symbol of American exceptionalism. I have a rags to riches story. You can check out my video. You can check out my origin story on our channel, which is youtube.com/ignition time. I release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. So please subscribe to the channel. Please enable notifications so you get instant alerts going forward whenever I release a video. Also, if you want to get breaking news and alerts from us, directly from us, meaning me and my team at Ignition Time, directly on your cell phone, get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000. That's 70000. The name of our channel is Ignition Time. So again, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000, 70000, and then you'll get breaking news and alerts from us going forward. You can opt out at any time. We can send you emails as well, as long as you agree to a quick disclaimer, and you can opt out of those at any time as well. For me, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white, and blue. For me, it's not about being a Democrat or being a Republican. It's about being American. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. I will see you in the next video of Ignition Time. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.